Hi, this is Scott Garibay, and today we're going to talk about Matt Colville's new fantasy tabletop magazine called Arcadia, and what it means for the hobby, and what it means for tabletop role-playing games overall, and really what it means for Dungeons & Dragons more than anything else. If you're not aware, Matt Colville runs Dungeons & Dragons games and gives advice primarily for running Dungeons & Dragons games. He is... most of his advice is Dungeons & Dragons specific. So, and virtually, and I think everything his company makes is D&D 5e compatible, right? So, and I think this is really interesting. Matt Colville is a really interesting guy. He came up in video games, and really loves Dungeons & Dragons, and made one of these products, one of these Dungeons & Dragons adjacent products. I think it was Strongholds and Followers. And it made like $2 million. It was a $2 million Kickstarter. So there are a few people, just a handful of gentlemen who have made $1 million plus TTRPG, actually Dungeons and Dragons, or tabletop role-playing games, which have made $1 million plus on specifically on Kickstarter. Matthew Colville's one of them. But he made a major move this week, and that was his magazine, his new magazine, Arcadia. So basically, he was like, hey, remember Dragon Magazine? Remember how cool it was and how awesome it was? What if we did a magazine again, and we were putting out a magazine where people would actually get a real magazine that was printed, that they could enjoy, that they would really like, right? What if we did that, right? So what he did was he announced that they were opening up a magazine, and this is my knowledge of the product. It's called Arcadia. It's going to start at issue 1, and he announced it, and said that there's going to be 3 to 4 articles per magazine, and you'll get the PDF immediately, but it'll also get shipped to you as a physical magazine, right? There's a lot of guys like me who and ladies, I'm sure, who remember Dragon Magazine and just remember the joy of picking that magazine up off the shelves, and the PDF has never really replaced it. So what he did was, so basically magazines are a terrible business model, right? Like, you don't want to be doing magazines anymore. So Matt Colville's a really smart guy, and he did something really fascinating. And what he did was he said, hey, the way you get this magazine is you sign up for the $5 or $10 subscription, $5 or $10 supporter role on my Patreon, right? Now, this is absolutely fascinating, because what does the magazine cost? Who knows, right? If you go on to Matt Colville right now and you sign up for his $5 a month Patreon supporter item, that's going to cost you $60 a year, okay? And if you forget, you could be paying that for 4 years, so you could get a bunch of magazines for like $240 for $240 for 4 years, right? That's not a great deal, all right? Like that's a lot. You're paying $5 per month, and actually, you know what? I'm interested. I'm not positive what the frequency is on the magazine. Is the magazine coming out every 3 months, or is it coming out monthly the way Dragon was? I don't even know, right? But I'm like a lot of tabletop role players now who miss Dragon Magazine. I make a good nut now. Like, I make some solid money, and I got more than enough to put $5 of money into Matt Colville's pocket, so I immediately signed up. And guess what? He just gave an astounding number. He said in one day, they got 3,500 subscriber increase in Patreon. So in one day, they got 3,500 people to sign up for this thing, right? And that's probably going to be the majority. There'll probably be another 500 or 1,000 stragglers, right? But people got excited and immediately signed up so they could get the magazine, this Arcadia magazine, which is a replacement for Dragon Magazine, right? It's a new, current, modern magazine giving you articles about Dungeons & Dragons, right? And so if you miss the old Dragon Magazine, this is going to scratch your itch, right? Well, do the math, right? Okay? If you got 3,500 subscribers giving you $500 a month, that's $17,500, right? So that right there, if you double that, right, that's going to put you to 35. Yeah, I think that puts you to $35,000 every 2 months, and actually it's over $200,000 a year. So in one day, Matt Colville has an ongoing revenue of $200,000 a year, right? And that's huge because that pays for staff. You could pay 3 full-time staff people off of that alone. And all of that money comes in and flows in without him doing a thing, right? So he continues to work on these projects that he's working on, which since they did Strongholds and Followers, I think I don't understand very much what people get for what they're paying Matt Colville. It seems like they just like, oh, you're living the life of Riley, buddy. Here's our money to, I think he streamed some games and they put out a book every now and then, right? It's not super clear, but this Arcadia thing totally got me, right? And the reality is, I think people just have a lot of goodwill for Matt Colville because his love for Dungeons & Dragons is very genuine. And he is supplying something, right? He's giving like these tip videos and these streamed game videos for that people can watch, right? And I think he's about the most successful next to Matt Colville. Nobody touches Matt Colville in the entire industry. He's just at a level that nobody really is at, right? But Matt Mercer. So Matt Colville is second to Matt Mercer. But overall, this was a huge win for Matt Colville. And he said, and basically was saying, if you're willing to put out some work and do some and hustle a little bit, you can make a very good living on Kickstarter if you're at scale and if you're able to bring people in. And at this point, he is. This is a major move forward in the overall market for tabletop role-playing games. This is a $200,000 revenue stream that he's created with one idea, right? And he's continuing to build his company. And this is subsidiary to Dungeons & Dragons, right? There are not a lot of people who are able to do this. Matt Colville is a very big personality in our industry. I'm very excited about this. By the way, I got the PDF right away. And the magazine, I can tell you right now, is totally awesome. It had 3 articles in them. It was beautifully written. It had fantastic art. It really looked like the old Dragon magazine, but it looked modern and new, right? Both at the same time. And this didn't look like just some, jank ripoff. It looked like they really got some good writers on it. It looked like everybody involved worked hard, and I did not feel ripped off. I really felt this was a really, really solid product. But more than anything, I'm just making this video to say that they're at the upper echelons. You definitely can. We're getting to the point where if you're smart and you're driven, you can absolutely fund a small business off the subsidiary popularity of Dungeons & Dragons. Dungeons & Dragons is still very strong. There's still a lot of juice in the tank, and the ability to get 3,500 people to sign up in a single day to give you $5 forever or until they pull the plug on it. That's big. That is really, really big. My hat's off to Matt Colville. I'm very impressed. I'm impressed that even the overflow goodwill of Dungeons & Dragons allows this type of success. This is a major, major occurrence in the industry. That's my opinion. What do you think of Arcadia? Do you think this was a good idea? Are you surprised that 3,500 people signed up, or do you think that's a low number? I'd love to hear your thoughts. Let me know what you think in the comments below. Please consider liking and subscribing, and have a wonderful millennium.